Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices hosted by World Information Transfer and focusing on the 17 United Nations Development Goals. Today we have Ms. Mădălina Ştefanic, the Mentorship Leader at the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. Ms. Ştefanic is a Human Resources Senior Economist with over 13 years of experience in human resource processes. Her diverse expertise spans from developing human resource strategies, succession plans, and motivational instruments to mentorship at the human research analysis. She has made significant contributions in writing procedures and conducting self-assessments for adherence to the Institute for Nuclear Power Operations Standards. A frequent participant in international and national conferences, Mădălina has presented on a range of topics from personnel retention to psychometric requirements in nuclear power plant operations. Her benchmark efforts have led to impactful exchanges with notable nuclear power plants worldwide. In addition, Mădălina is a psychological profiler and a graduate of the Business Intelligence Psychology Academy in Bucharest. Over to you, Ms. Ştefanic.
Thank you so much, dear audience. As Dr. Durban said, that I'm working at Cernavodă MPP, Romania, which is on the coast of Black Sea. And I all invite you to see Romania when you have time. So may I share my presentation is called Future of Nuclear Domain and Human Resources, a 50-year strategy. You will see that it is very important, this topic, for the humanity. So a couple of words. I just told you that I'm very, very glad about our network established on Black Sea in 2021, when you will see. So our vision is to create a barrier-free and diverse opportunities for women from Black Sea region to extend nuclear fields and increase presence in leadership. Our mission is, the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Networks mission is to connect, support, and empower women in nuclear fields. The BSWN was established at the end of 2021 with a virtual inaugural workshop by the James Martin Center of Non-Proliferation Studies, Middlebury Institute of International Studies, jointly with Odessa Center for Non-Proliferation and UWIN Ukraine. The project was conceptualized by CNS and supported by the Los Alamos National Laboratory through the Nuclear Security Women Initiative under U.S. Department of Energy National Nuclear Security Administration's Office of International Nuclear Security. Additional funding was also provided by the Swedish Radiation Safety Authority. So this is the image from our Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network virtual workshop during December 2021. There are many countries. So there are 6 countries involved in this network. Romania, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Turkey, Moldavia, Georgia, and that's it, I think. Oh, and Turkey. Yes, there are 6, and we can have also members from other countries who want to join our network. Why this topic? Future of nuclear domain and human resources, a 50-year strategy. From the next slides, you may see that in order to establish an efficient strategy, we need 50 years. On February 2022, the European Commission announced that the establishment of a green label for nuclear and gas power plants that recognizes under certain conditions their contribution to the fight against climate change. The aim of the green taxonomy proposed by the Commission is clear. In order to meet its ambitious climate targets, zero net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, The European Union must divest from fossil fuels and mobilize capital to finance the investments needed to shift to green technologies that are environmentally friendly. The nuclear industry relies heavily on a specialized and highly trained workforce for its safety and sustainability. Effective human resources management ranges from education and training to the continual monitoring and improvement of the workforce's performance. Human resource management in the nuclear industry needs to be of a particularly high standard, both in terms of competence and performance. Developing the specialists needed in this field requires considerable effort and time. Nuclear industry experience shows that within nuclear power plants, 80% of significant events can be attributed to human error. For this reason, monitoring and continually improving human performance has become one of the key challenges in the management of human resources for a nuclear facility. So more nuclear units equal more highly competent people if the technology remains the same or almost the same. Companies that are planning new nuclear units are currently indicating that the total cost, including escalation and financing costs, will be in the range of $5,500 per kilowatt to $8,100 per kilowatt, or between $6 to $9 billion for each 1,100 megawatt plant. Due to the high standards of nuclear industry, example, rigid procedures, long period of time to become an expert, 5 to 10 years, and the location of MPPs, nuclear power plants, meaning in the middle of nowhere, there are not too many people interested to be employees at nuclear power plants. They prefer big cities, which rewards them with social life, easy money, and versatile careers. Almost all the important documents regarding HR strategy on the nuclear domain discuss about strategies developing by individual countries and stakeholders interested about nuclear energy. Examples: managing human resources in the field of nuclear energy. This publication provides guidance on the management of human resources in the field of nuclear energy. It considers this issue at both the individual and organizational level, and the development of an appropriate human resources management strategy. Human resources management for nuclear power plant power programs is the second example. This publication provides member states with a structured approach to developing an effective human resources management strategy, which can be adapted to suit the nature and scope of the national nuclear power programs. There are already 60 future technical conferences about nuclear energy up to 2027 listed on conferenceservices.com, which demonstrate the technical interest of companies on this domain. So, for example, WONDER 2023, the 6th International Workshop on Nuclear Data Evaluation for Reactor Application from France, June, France. Garden Research Seminars, United States, June 2023. 2023 American Nuclear Society Annual Meeting, June, Indianapolis, United States. Patron 2022, the International Symposium on the Packaging and Transportation of Radioactivity Materials, France. 16th Varena Conference on Nuclear Reaction Mechanism, Varena, Italy. Garden Research Conference, Nuclear Chemistry, United States, also in June. Global Energy Show, June, in China. NUCOS 23, Nuclear Corrosion Summer School, in July, in Slovenia. 38th Annual Decommissioning and Radioactive Waste Management Summer School, and so on. Yes, there are 60. Oh, I listed here only 13 examples. Also, in 2023, there are 121 HR events and only one about HR strategy. In fact, this conference was in March 2023 in UK, and it was about HR Strategy Forum. Description of the event. Within the world's largest corporations, there are few departments with as far-reaching responsibilities as that of human resources. To continue meeting the challenges that HR brings requires a balancing act between change, risk, and innovation. In a world fueled by 24-hour news cycles and viral videos, the role of the Chief Human Resources Officers is changing rapidly, and keeping up whilst maintaining the highest standards can only be achieved through learning from leaders and peers. Whilst conventional perceptions of HR might be limited to hiring and firing, the role is more complex now than ever before. Consideration of social media, diversity, and training and development are all at the forefront of any organization's HR plan. The HR Strategy Forum brings Chief Human Resources Officers, HR Directors, Heads of HR, and other senior HR executives together with solutions providers in a 3-day HR Business Network event. The forum promises to inspire the debate through our world-class engagement platforms and ultimately broaden your expertise to add real value and insight back into the organization you represent. As an HR leader from your organization, you have the opportunity to exchange ideas through one-to-one business meetings, speed networking, and group discussions. In addition, there will be a range of speakers sessions focusing on hot topics, including human capital management, workforce planning, and performance management. Through these, you are given the opportunity at the forum to meet with innovators offering personnel solutions and at the reducing costs and improving efficiency. My example wants to say that no nuclear subject here. So in 2014, yes, 2014, Mrs. Brenda Paganone, a training specialist at the time from Department of Nuclear Energy, IAEA, had a presentation called Human Resources Development for Nuclear Power Programs, the IAEA Perspective at Fukui International Meeting in Japan. Let's see the important ideas she presented then. Key challenges for HR. Key challenges is to achieve the initial competence and then sustainability of sufficient human resources to support the nuclear power programs. Requires the coordination and cooperation of all national stakeholders, government, education sector, industry, vendors, suppliers, international bodies. Real-world experience. Many newcomer countries take a top-bottom-up approach and look at what resources they have and will recruit in the short, medium term. But many of the key programs linkages are not clear at this level. However, it is necessary to begin with the nuclear power program's goals and the roles of responsibilities of the various stakeholders in delivering those goals. For example, a top-down approach. Otherwise, the programs is driven by the availability of human resources and not the other way around. Senior decision makers have to recognize the need to invest in HR early to secure other program goals. Summary from that presentation in say once again, 2014. HRD is a cross-cutting issue impacting on all aspects of nuclear infrastructure. Key role of the government, synchronization between HR strategy and program project requirements. HR strategy and infrastructure must be developed early, including vendor support requirements. Education, training, and experience lead times can be up to 5 to 10 years for key positions. Education and training consideration, she said. Majority of permanent workforce is needed for the operation organization. Once MPP is commissioned, typically workforce for a 2-unit MPP is 600 to 1,200 personnel. Around 65 to 80% of workforce are required at non-graduate level technicians, for example. Of the graduate workforce, 20 to 35%, only around 20% or approximately 5% of total workforce need a nuclear engineering background. Training experience requirements for very specialist roles can be 5 to 10 years. In regulatory body, also percent of graduates is much higher, more than 50%, but specialist technicians still needed. From the chart, you can see example distribution of disciplines for the nuclear workforce. So for example, a small amount of people, nuclear engineering degree, chemistry, electrical systems, radiation protection, maintenance, instrumentation and control, mechanical system, non-licensed operators need 2-year associate degree backgrounds. Mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, and engineering technology need 4-year degrees or other disciplines. In 2008, Akira Omoto said that estimated manpower requirements at the peak during MPP project constructions and commission should be in total about 7,000 people. There is also a timing diagram of timing of workforce employment before plant operation in this slide. Step to build sustainable human resources. Consistent will be the programmatic objectives and schedule just described. There are 3 main steps to achieving sustainable competence in human resources for any program. 1, develop the necessary infrastructure. So let's have people, yes? Secondary and primary education system with strong math and sciences components. So she said to start to train our kids from primary education system, yes, with strong math and sciences components, to prepare for and stimulate interest in science and engineering careers. Technical vocational schools to create good skilled artisans, technicians in different engineering and technical disciplines. University program from nuclear engineering and science professional staff and allied professions, example, chemistry, business, finance, human resources. Creating outreach program to engage students in nuclear program and stimulate career interest. Build capacity, create a pool of resources, develop and sustain competence. So to build capacity, we need an umbrella of education and training, human resources development, knowledge management, knowledge networks. So under this umbrella should be government, regulators, operators, educational institution, and so on. To develop and sustain competencies, we have to look, this is the chart of human resource and knowledge management. So we have to look very careful to national capability versus needs, yes, to see national and international education and training capability versus requirements. So workforce planning means on our organizational internal recruitment, training and development, performance management, remuneration, career management, succession planning, and retirement. Let's remember nuclear fuel cycle. Yes, this is the drawing here showing to us that uranium, the nuclear fuel cycle starts from uranium mining with fuel production, new fuel going to power reactors, over there spent fuel reprocessing, and so on and so on. Let's talk a little bit about wastes. Between the start of nuclear power-based electricity production in 1954 and at the end of 2016, a total about 390,000 tons of spent fuel was discharged from all nuclear power plants worldwide. In this table, we can see reported spent fuel discharge from nuclear power plants as of 31 December 2016, from the region of Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, Oceania. The source is national profiles and Joint Convention national reports. From this table, we can see that Americas has 136,500 tons, Europe 201,500 tons. So in total, there are 390, as I said, 1,000 tons. Population, let's talk about population now. The world's population is expected to increase by nearly 2 billion persons in the next 30 years, from the current 8 billion to 9.7 billion in 2050, and could peak at nearly 10.4 billion in the mid-2080s. Countries with the highest fertility levels tend to be those with the lowest income per capita. Global population growth has therefore over time become increasingly concentrated among the world's poorest countries, most of which are in sub-Saharan Africa. China and India, most populous countries. More than half of global population growth between now and 2050 is expected to occur in Africa. Africa has the highest rate of population growth among major areas. The population of sub-Saharan Africa is projected to double by 2050. In sharp contrast, the populations of 61 countries or areas in the world are expected to decrease by 2050, of which 26 may see a reduction of at least 10%. Several countries are expected to see their populations decline by more than 50% by 2050, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Hungary, Japan, Latvia, Lithuania, Republic of Moldova, Serbia, Romania, Serbia, and Ukraine. Fertility in all European countries is now below the level required for full replacement of the population in the long run, around 2.1 children per woman. And in the majority of cases, fertility has been below the replacement level for several decades. Factors influencing the population growth. Fertility rates. Future population growth is highly dependent on the path that future fertility will take. According to the World Population Prospects 2022 revision, global fertility is projected to fall from 2.3 children per woman in 2021 to 2.1 in 2050. Increasing longevity. Overall, significant gains in life expectancy have been achieved in recent years. Globally, life expectancy at birth is expected to rise from 72.8 years in 2019 to 77.2 years in 2050. While considerable progress has been made in closing the longevity differential between countries, large gaps remain. In 2021, life expectancy at birth in the least developed countries lags from 7 years behind the global average, due largely to persistently high levels of child and maternal mortality, as well as violence, conflict, and the continuing impact of the HIV epidemic. International migration. International migration is a much smaller component of population change than births or deaths. However, in some countries and areas, the impact of migration on population size is significant, namely the countries that send or receive large numbers of economic migrants and those affected by refugee flows. Let's resume. In order to meet the ambitious climate targets established, zero net emissions of greenhouse gases by 2050, the financial entities must direct their investments to green technologies that are environmentally friendly. They are looking also for stable political and social systems which can protect their investments. The interest for NPPs will increase and there will be more units in operation in the next years. The total cost, including escalation and financing costs of a new nuclear unit, are in the range of $5,500 per kilowatt to $8,100 per kilowatt, or between $6 and $9 billion of each 1,100 megawatt plant. The number of population tend to increase in the countries with the lowest income per capita and to highly decrease in rest, 10 to 15%. One nuclear unit needs for operation a minimum of 600 very competent and efficient people who are not looking for social life, easy money, and versatile careers. Their families will also have to adhere to these standards. Conclusion. It is very clear that there is a huge interest nowadays for new NPPs, and the constraints presented will manifest in all countries which operate NPPs or are interested for this in a couple of years. So these are problems that should be solved by all countries interested in cooperation. For new NPPs from the next 50 years should answer to the following min-max challenges. Minimize the project complexity and maximize the safety and security. Minimize the costs as low as reasonable possible and maximize the accessibility to nuclear technologies. Minimize the nuclear fuel consumption and maximize its efficiency. Maximize the recycle of nuclear waste and minimize the quantity of it. Minimize the impact of nuclear waste repositories and maximize their safety. Minimize the number of employees and maximize the process automation. Minimize the level of competencies and maximize the attraction of new generation. Who can come up with these solutions for the next 50 years? Nuclear scientists, sociologists and psychologists, IT and I&C, regulatory bodies, governments, HRs. They have to come up with integrated solutions, project plus personnel for all stages, international training and development hubs starting from secondary schools, including kids with psychological profiles adequate to nuclear profile, unique nuclear legislation. Here are the links I used to take my information for these presentations, so they can be checked and see that I'm not talking stupid things. So let's start to work together on the future of nuclear domain and human resources, a 50-year strategy in order to have a real environmental protection and development of sustainable energy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Štefanic, for a very excellent and timely presentation on a very relevant topic at the present time. Susie Hallock, our moderator, will ask the questions from the audience. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you, Dr. Durbach, and thank you so much, Mădălina, for an insightful presentation. Our first question from the audience is, how does your culture and heritage of living near the Black Sea influence your choices when going into the nuclear field, working in HR? In other words, anything from your environment that helped influence you into going into this field?
So I'm working at Cernavoda NPP since 1988. Yes, so for a couple of decades, I was an assistant to managers. So at that time, during Ceausescu regime in 1988, for me, it was an honor and a challenge to go to nuclear sectors. At that time, we did not know too many things about nuclear. But during all my career, I learned a lot about this. And as I mentioned to you before starting my presentation, it's very important that we look to the best practices. Romania and Cernavoda is looking to the best practices from the world, especially from the United States and Canada, because at Cernavoda. The project is a CANDU project, yes, made by a Canadian. So my culture, was built in 30 years, not in couple of years. So that's why I'm telling you that starting from zero, because we had no culture, nuclear culture at that time, as an MPP, because we had other stakeholders, but as an MPP, to start from zero, to be an INPO 1 now, rated as an excellent power plant, is very, very important. And it was built in decades. That's why I'm talking about the 50-year strategy.
Very impressive. Thank you. What has been the most interesting projects you've been a part of in your career?
Is very, I was involved in many projects, but one of the most important for me, for example, it was that I was leading together with IT, implementing our IT systems for HR in 2000. It was that time, yes. So it was very important at that time to use an integrated system to manage HR informations, yes. So we had separate databases in Access or something like that before, but to use a system integrated, implemented in our nuclear power plant, it was something wow. And I remember that in that time, in 20,000, when I arrived at HR, it was my first year, and it was very, very difficult because that system, I had to manage from HR part, all this system. And probably, you know, that is not something easy. So I had nights when I went home and I couldn't sleep because I said, oh, if I'm doing something wrong and the information are spreading outside HR with the wrong informations, yes, and probably people from operation, from maintenance cannot log tomorrow morning to the computers because Mădălina did something wrong on the system. So there are 13 years since then, and when I remember, it was the difficult but most challenging year for me at the time.
Fertility rates are expected to decrease in the future. How do you think decreasing fertility rates will impact our overpopulation issue?
I'm not, to be very clear, I'm not a specialist. The information are from UN site, yes. So I'm telling you how the decreasing, you see, this decreasing is happening in the countries who have money and want to build new nuclear power plants. So when you don't have enough people to run a nuclear power plant, it will be a very big problem. You can buy as many equipments as you want, but if you don't have right people to operate them, it will be a vulnerability. And this is not a vulnerability only for that state, because MPP is not something that we can keep inside of the borders. When a big problem arises in these power plants, it will affect all the states from the region. Yes, let's remember Fukushima, let's remember Chernobyl. Yes, it affects all the world. So we have to think very specific to be focused on this issue, because you saw that everyone is very interested to build new capacities, but nobody's talking about human resources for these plants. So we have to do this. I will talk to whoever wants to listen to me about this issue. We have to start now, because when Mrs. Paganone talked in 2013, 14, you can see that from that year to this year, we are just talking, nothing. Yes. Thank you so much. Canadian standards and US standards implemented the OPEX instrument. OPEX means operating experience. So every time we start a new activity, we have to, at Cernavodă, I'm talking about Cernavodă, I'm not talking about other countries or other stations because I don't know. And I don't want to speak just to speak. So for example, as I said, Romania, Cernavodă used these best practices and implemented this instrument. This is not only one, but is this operating experience we are using every time we have to do something for the first time. We see what happened in that topic to the other stations. Every time we have to do something which is not on a routine, we have, yes, to do once again. So every time we see, and this OPEX, how the database was constructed, with the information from all the countries using associated to nuclear operators. So every time something in our nuclear power plant happened, we have to complete, we call we have to unconditional, abnormal report, abnormal condition report. We have to complete this. So if, for example, if I made 2 times the same mistake and I didn't learn anything from my experience, I will write, yes, I did this twice. So for example, in HR, we have to write this, and everyone will know that you have to be more careful when you do this activity, for example. So we have a lot of instruments. I specifically will say that please, in nuclear power plants, implement these practices, best practices from United States and from Canada. I answer to your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
What are the main advantages and disadvantages of nuclear power?
I'm not an expert. As I said, I'm an HR person. So I would say that as you are, probably nobody from here or a couple of you are in nuclear domain, I will say just like a regular person from outside, yes. What's the advantage? The bigger advantage is that we have to work with, from HR point of view, we do not need too many people. Yes, this is an advantage. 600 persons per one unit who produce 1,100 megawatts. It's very important. But the main disadvantage is that they have to be very competent. They have to have organizational culture, learn. They have to have in their DNA this culture. You cannot work in a nuclear power plant at the excellent level if you are not outside of the plant like that person. So for example, if I'm going inside the plant and the expectancy from me is to pick up the garbage. If I see a garbage outside on the road, I have to pick up the garbage. Yes, and all of us are doing this inside of the plant. Outside, I have to do the same thing. But look, Romania is not nuclear power plant. We will be, yes. Romania will have the same culture in a couple of years, yes. But I have to do in the same way. So the disadvantage is that we need very high proficient personnel. The other advantage I know from my colleagues is that we have to deliver, the system is very stable. So you do not use many fuel, a big quantity of fuel. And the system is very stable. Disadvantage is that we have to work very careful with this fuel. And we have to be very careful what we are doing with the waste disposals. And so on. Yes, all the systems have advantages and disadvantages. I learned what is the most important advantage, I will say, to a nuclear power plant is that build this kind of people like me with a high proficient profile, yes, and with very high standards. And we have to be all these in our society to have a big development all over the world.
In your opinion, to what extent is the world community informed about the situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine?
In Europe, because we are very, very close to Ukraine and the situation, I'm very sure that everyone knows, because it's very important for us, and it's a very difficult situation. We are next to I have friends in Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. I have many friends. I met many people from Ukraine which are suffering very, 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 very big damages, psychological and physical. So, you know, you wake today and you have to take everything. Think about this. You wake in tomorrow morning, and you have to take everything from you and to leave your house with small kids and with couple of luggages with you, and to go to somewhere you don't know, because many of them who left the country, they have nobody outside the country. We have almost 1 million, I think, in Romania. I'm not very aware about the last numbers. About 1 million people from Ukraine in Romania, refugees. So 1 million to live from one day to another. Not many have big money to survive. Most of them are very poor people or on the medium, yes? So take your clothes, take your kids, take your puppies and go and run. Or others stay over there and fight for their countries. I'm so amazed by them. One of them promoted me to Dr. Dorbak, and I want to thank her for this big opportunity. Is about Katerina Pavlova. Katerina Pavlova was the PR director at Chernobyl, and she left from there when the war starts, because she said, I have 2 kids, I have to live for them, I have to provide them a secure life. And she left the country going in nowhere. And she did this for me with to promote to you and with no advantages. She's just like that. She's a big soul, and I want to thank to her.
Do you think that world organizations are doing enough to ensure that another catastrophe that the Russians can cause when they strike the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant can happen in the future?
If I understood quite well, if we are doing something in the next, we should. That's why is my presentation. This is, you don't need a war to do something like that. Let's remember Fukushima. Let's remember Chernobyl. Let's remember that 80% from the errors are human errors from my presentation. So we have to have competent personnel. let's buy a nuclear power plant in one country and find that we don't have competent personnel or enough personnel. Who's running this plant? We have to have this personnel, even if we are shutting down. We have to manage the waste disposals. So we have to have competent personnel for all the stages. That's why my presentation is very important.
How does the HR function at nuclear organizations help increase safety and risk management approaches to protect its people and stakeholders in the area? That was a big part of your presentation, but maybe the biggest way that they make an impact in order to increase safety and risk management.
So HR is very important because HR is selecting the personnel. Yes, so we have to be very careful who we are selecting and employing in our organizations. Yes, so I will give you a best practices. An example. Yes, the Canadian states. Couple of days before revised their standards regarding selection criteria, and they mentioned that they have to test anti-alcohol and anti-drugs, yes, before hiring that personnel, yes, and they change. We have couple of tests during our career, yes, in nuclear power plant. For example, this is one example. We have these tests. We have to be very careful that our employees are fit for duty. It's called fit for duty. Yes. So we have couple of tests, but nobody was thinking to up to Canadians to test them before hiring. Because as we know, drugs are not something easy. Alcohol is not something easy to deal with. It's not something I'm taking a pill. Tomorrow I will not take the pill, so I'm happy and everyone is happy. And drugs and alcohol affect career, destroy careers. So they changed these standards. And they said, okay, let's test them before hiring and after an event, which is based on human error, to see that. So after that event, which can be minor event, and is very important to be minor event, we will test the personnel involved for drugs and alcohol to see if they are dealing with this or not. Because it must be a situation, and it must take into consideration. So these are two examples. Cernavoda will put in place these best practices also. Okay, thank you. Probably I answered to. It's just one example. We are doing so many things. So succession plan. We have to discuss this 10 hours if you want. We have to do more conferences about this subject because, for example, succession plan is very important. Why succession plan is very important? You cannot leave a place, a vacancy, yes, because on a very important job, just because you couldn't find the person. We have to have this replacement in the very next moment when the vacancy occurs. So this is a job. You plan, succession plan is not developed from one day to another. It takes years. I'm working on this succession plan I was working for 10 years till one of my youngest colleagues arrived and we gave her the succession plan. 10 years, and it is not excellent. It needs to be more improvements because it's something that we have to improve. That's why I'm telling 50 years, we have to look to the big picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Based on your experience in HR, how can women of different generations, backgrounds, ideologies find common ground and collaborate effectively?
We had a presentation. We have in Romania, we have a group set by one very, very experienced employee from our regulator, which is, I will mention her name, is very important for me. It's a very good friend of mine, is also Mădălina Coca. And she set up a group called Nuclear Romania. And we are discussing over there some subjects interested, which are interested for. One subject was that how women can lead in nuclear, yes, to become the new leaders. And in one presentation was also from the network. We have the data on the network. The money now are run by women. Yes. So yes, probably the men are getting the salary, big salaries, but the money are spent by women. So who runs the money, runs the power. No more men going to university. They prefer to go to easy jobs and so on. Only women going to universities. Only women are more, you know, I don't know if you are very used to the nuclear profile of an individual, of an employee. We have to be very careful. We have to be very analytical. Yes, we have to look to all. This is like something like OCD. Yes, obsessive compulsive disorder in with the abbreviation. So women are like this. Men are not like that. So they are not in nuclear power plants. Everything is automatized, almost automatized right now. So women have to go there. We have to publish. We have to tell everyone that we expect women. We want women. So in next years, we will have more women in nuclear than men. It was the conclusion of that presentation. With data from the internet, we can make this presentation to you if you are interested about this. Is a fact that women will run the world in the next decades because they are teachers, so they are teaching the new generations, they are running the money, they're learning very fast and very, very competent. Yes. So the word is to the women in the next years. Of course, we will do with men, not only us, but we have to trust in our power because we do not have trust yet, is my point of view.
Thank you so much. Such great responses. Really appreciated it. I'll now turn to Dr. Durbach to ask a few more questions and close out. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Our next question is, can you talk more about the importance of women participating in the nuclear power sector?
Why we want women, more women in nuclear? So, for example, we don't have, we tried to see how many women are involved in nuclears. We don't know yet because there is no database telling us how many women work in a nuclear environment. But as I can approximately, not too many. So let's say that around, I will say that from my company and from the companies at my colleagues from Black Sea Women in Nuclear, and we discuss about this, around 20%, 30% are women. If we they are not coming to nuclear because they think that is a man organization, is a man industry specific to them. But the presentation made to Romania, Nuclear Romania, which I mentioned before, was made by a nuclear operator, a man from Cernavoda. He presented this to all the women, and he said that we have to have more women because they are more appropriate to the industry. From their profiles, you can see that they are taking care. They will think twice before doing something. Women are protecting others. Women are not destroying. So from this profile, we can see that it's very important to have women. Yes, if the women are constructed in this way to protect the others, they have to run nuclear industry. That's why it's important to have more. And they have to learn, as Mrs. Paganone said, maths and science. And there are many who are doing this right now. That presentation showed to us how many are involved in these programs. But to make the difference, we have to know the numbers. So Black Sea Women in Nuclear, one of the projects we want to develop is to find the numbers, official numbers from the states. How many women are involved? How many are in that discipline? How many are involved, for example, as operators? How many are involved in HR? How many on disciplines and on ages? And to make a statistic to see how many. And after that, to discuss, look, we have to do this and this and this. And this should be, yes, because women can be a very powerful workforce for the nuclear for the next years. And this should be one of part of this strategy, I'm thinking.
Next question. Do you think that Russia will use nuclear resources and create danger to the entire world?
Of course, but it's very simple that they are using all the instruments. Is in the nature of the people. Yes, when they have, you don't have to have nuclear. Let's say that it's a regular situation. It's a fight between two people. It's a fight, yes, and they have to survive. They will use all the instruments they have. So I don't want to believe that they will use finally. I'm trusting that they will not use. But they are using all the instruments they have. It's a regular fight. We have to look to the big pictures. It's a fight between two persons, and they are using instruments, and they are escalating. Someone have to moderate this.
Can you tell us what are the new innovations and expectations and challenges for the nuclear energy in the future?
To build a plant takes 10 years, 5 years, 10 years. And after that, someone will come up with a new solution and will say, oh, we have energy in 1 year with half of the price, and it's better than your nuclear energy. What are you doing over there? The business will shut. Yes, so we have to be more efficient. We have to do something in this. That's why I'm telling you that if the nuclear scientists are not thinking to work with all that people I said, they will shut the industry, because the industry will have no future in this situation, because someone will be smart enough to find the solution to use something which is more efficient. It's my point of view, and it's very easy. It's a business. We have to think like it's a business. Nobody
That-
wants to spend money and to have problems.
Excellent point, Mădălina, to end on. Your pertinent presentation gave a great deal of food for thought to our audience, and we hope that it will have an impact on their actions. Have a very good week and goodbye.
For me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.